Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I thought ESPN was supposed to be the worldwide leader in sports. I thought ESPN was supposed to be the network that we could rely on for substandard coverage of any sport, substandard coverage of the NFL, abysmal coverage of the NBA, incessant coverage of women's college basketball and the pretend basketball and the WNBA dump, Formula One, golf, college baseball, hell, Little League baseball. ESPN offers coverage of every form of baseball except the one that people care about the most, Major League Baseball. Recently, ESPN decided that they were getting out of the Major League Baseball business. They didn't feel like it was worth it to pay $500 million every year for one game a week. Can't say that I blame them, but that divorce was filed by ESPN. It was their choice. This time, ESPN could be the defendant in divorce proceedings. Dana White is not happy with his current marriage to the worldwide leader in woke. Several years ago, the UFC signed an exclusive agreement with ESPN. Their preliminary matches would air on their main network, and the monthly pay-per-view events would be exclusive to ESPN Plus, the streaming service, which is the streaming equivalent to a polished turd. But this partnership with ESPN, it has been so disastrous. Dana White is thinking about dumping ESPN for Netflix, a move that could happen sooner rather than later. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you happen to stumble upon this video, be sure to check out my main channel, Behind the Line. The link to the main channel is in the description below. Last weekend was an absolute disaster for the UFC. Their pay-per-view on ESPN Plus experienced countless streaming issues. The feed was dropping out. There were connection issues. At times, it looked like you were trying to stream the event from your 56K modem. Apparently, this has been a consistent problem throughout their partnership, which is why Dana White is thinking about moving to Netflix. Didn't Netflix have the exact same problem, maybe even worse, with the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight? Moving to Netflix could be risky for Dana White and the UFC. Even though ESPN's coverage of sports is substandard, at least they provide some level of coverage. The Netflix coverage of that Mike Tyson fight, it was an embarrassment. But I don't think this move is about coverage for Dana White and the UFC. If I had to guess, this move is about reach. 10 years ago, UFC was in the mainstream. Now, a lot of that had to do with Conor McGregor, but they also had other stars that could draw. Daniel Cormier, Rafael dos Anjos, Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg, Nate Diaz. I have always been a casual fan of the UFC, never been a diehard fan of MMA. It was the same thing with boxing when I was growing up. To me, watching two guys fight for no reason, it's boring. But if there was a storyline going into the fight, if there was shit talk, if they built tension leading up to the fight, I had no problem paying $100 to watch them beat the hell out of each other. 10 years ago, I was buying 2-3 UFC events every year. Since they have moved to ESPN Plus, I haven't bought one. They moved to ESPN in 2019, so I haven't bought a UFC event in the last 6 years. Could that be from a complete lack of star power? Yeah. I mean, I have no idea who is fighting in the UFC right now, but I think some of it has to do with the fact that their events are buried on ESPN Plus. When I could click a button on my remote control and order a UFC fight, I would do it. Now I got to sign up for ESPN Plus, got to enter my credit card, I got to navigate through their shitty streaming platform to find the fight. Then the whole time I'm watching, I'm constantly worried about streaming issues. Can't follow the fight on social media because people are minutes ahead of you. From the outside looking in, this partnership with ESPN, it has taken the UFC out of the mainstream. Think about it. How often do you hear about the UFC today? The only time I hear about UFC is when Conor McGregor is announcing another comeback that never ends up happening. Other than that, I never hear about it. The only time I heard about the UFC last year was when Dana White was campaigning for the Trumper. It just feels like the promotion has moved back to the underground. They have their diehard fans, but they're missing the casual fans. They're missing guys like me who would buy 2 or 3 events every year. Does moving to Netflix solve this problem? I don't know. But I don't think it could hurt. I would be much more inclined to order a UFC event on Netflix. What about you? Would moving to Netflix be beneficial for the UFC? Has their partnership with ESPN taking them out of the mainstream? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the main channel.